as a student of currencies and currency life cycles since 1987, what we are experiencing is the death of the system. And what we all need to do is we need
surfer, like I'm your best friend. Balances in your bank instead. What's up, everybody? I'm Jared, the Stacking Surfer, and I've got another awesome video for you guys today. I've got a wonderful guest here, Lynette Zang. We've had her on before. And if you stick around until the end, you can watch that previous video, which has some great information in it as well. And we'll also give you some great tips. But Lynette Zang is the CEO and founder of Zang Enterprises. And she has been in the precious metals market for a very long time. And she's been in finance since 1986. And Lynette, welcome to the show.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Jared. The single most important thing that has really risen, I know we talked about this before because this is something I talk about all the time now, is that community umbrella. It's coming together with like-minded people on a local level to create surety in food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation. Community is the most important to me these days, and shelter, because these are all the things that you need to sustain a reasonable standard of living as we are transitioning into a new system. And, you know, it's really kind of interesting because I did this piece on what is money, because people really don't, this is not something we're taught.
Yeah.
It should be, but they don't teach you this, because then you go, wait a minute, I'm working for corporate debt? No, I don't want to work for corporate debt. So instead they hide things, right? And they created the game, but we have to be smarter than them, because anytime we transition into a new system, it's really violent and it's really painful for the masses. There are always some that benefit, and I think that should be pretty obvious in the continued K-shape economy, which is really just garbage. But you know, this is really important. So wherever you are, you have to have that community, that security around you, so that you can be self-sovereign. And while I did a piece on the 4 pillars of money, which is it is an accounting tool, so you can price things,
Okay.
a medium of exchange, so you can, if I give you this, you give me that, a short-term store of value to be fairly paid for your labor today, and a long-term store of value so that no matter when you use that money, you are always fairly paid for the labor that created it. So this garbage here, if we're talking about the US, I mean, this stuff
Paper
was designed to mimic those functions, except for the last one, the long-term store of value. And so, and did I ever do the piece of how they make the change, which is important since we're going into a digital system?
No, let's talk about that. That'd be great.
Okay, let me show you, because this is like, it's such a clear way to do it. Just give me 2 seconds to go through all of these. Here we go. Okay. I am ready. Okay. I'm ready. So in the beginning, this was money, but then the Federal Reserve was born. Well, actually, this came out before the Federal Reserve was born, and it's a gold certificate. So you can see how they put a little gold on there. And what does this bill say? This certifies that there have been deposited in the Treasury of the United States in gold coin payable to the bearer on demand. So you could walk into any bank with this, and you could walk out with this. After 1913, when they legalized the private central bank, the Federal Reserve, well, they came out with this. And you can see how closely they resemble each other, right? And for 20 years, all 3 of these circulated at the same time in the system at the same stated value, $20. All 3 of these things are $20. But if you look at what this bill says, what does it say here? Federal Reserve note. Well, wait a
What
minute.
is that?
The Federal Reserve is a private corporation and a note is a debt instrument. So we got used to all of these circulating and thinking that they were all the same because they all had $20 on it. So when they took these two away, they still left this one and people thought nothing had changed. And they're doing the same thing in the digital system, but we're not done yet. So it's going to be extremely interesting to see what happens. But, you know, I don't think it was a coincidence that they came out. This is a physical representation of Bitcoin. And look at how much alike they look, right? I don't think it was a coincidence that Bitcoin came out in January of 2009 and quantitative easing came out in March of that same time. And when they got enough adoption by allowing the prices to go up, which is kind of a little bit surprising that they haven't done that and continued to suppress the price of gold, but there's a shift that's happening, right? So this was sold to us. It looks like gold. Most of the cryptocurrencies, the physical representations are gold, silver, or platinum, right? There's a reason why, but this is not turning out to be as digitally gold as they thought. Jeffries, I don't remember his first name, but his last name is Woods, just came out and sold off his entire Bitcoin position in favor of gold. Why? Because quantum computing is closer than they were anticipating that it was. And that means they will be able to breach this formula. Oops, look at that. It doesn't like it, but there you go. Breach that formula that keeps your information safe and presumably, I mean, I don't know how safe your information is anyway, but it's not digital gold. The other thing that I really want to point out is this stuff is used in one place, right? The financial system. That's it. And they built a whole ecosystem around it to get us to think that if this goes up, if the stock market goes up, then that's a good thing. If real estate goes up, then that's a good thing. No, no, no. That's about destroying the purchasing power value of that. It's not a good thing. But where are we at with gold? Because, hey, this I probably bought for $5 because I don't spend much money on this. This is still, has a face value of $20. It costs about a penny to create, less if it's in digital form, but it's lost 98, 99% officially of its purchasing power value. And spot gold, which is just a lie anyway, but spot gold is frankly nearing 5,000. Remember, all of these had the same face value, $20. Now you tell me, is it because gold is worth that much more or that the dollar is worth that much less? And I will point out to you, one place, the financial system, one place, the financial system. This is not a conclusive list. 33 places, 33 entities use gold. And I just am in the middle of this work. So this is brand new work for me. So I haven't quite yet counted out. Silver, there's a little bit more.
Okay.
So when you're going, why does it fight inflation? Because it's above, both of these are above all governments and central banks' ability to inflate away because of the demand. I mean, it truly is that simple.
Yeah, I think it's important because a lot of people are chasing profits, or they're chasing money,
Yes,
which is
they're chasing this
they're
garbage,
chasing
corporate
that.
debt.
Exactly. And what they're not realizing is it's a zero sum game. It's going to be who has the gold and silver is who's going to win this thing. Being in high tech space, I come across a lot of people with a lot of Bitcoin and a lot of cryptocurrencies and stocks in the stock market. Most everybody that has a W-2 income is saving in 401k. And that's where,
Yep.
maybe IRAs, and they're planning on drawing down on that for their retirement. They never think there's going to be a stock market crash when they go to retire. And for the people that do get caught up in that, it's horrible. It ends up changing their entire outlook of things. Um,
Yep.
when I look at gold and silver, I see at least with gold, I see a much more smooth, pattern of growth. And when it does skyrocket, it's usually because the fiat system is falling apart.
Hmm.
And so, I think right now is still an awesome time to be buying gold as well as silver, because it's still, in my book, way undervalued. Um,
Hmm.
when you look at what you were holding up there, everything had a $20 value. I go to a Chipotle restaurant to go get a burrito bowl, and it's almost $20 here in Southern California.
Wow.
You go to get like a hamburger meal at a restaurant, you're at about $18. Minimum wage here for restaurant workers is $20 in California. So that $20 has been completely obliterated at this point. It's not worth much.
Exactly.
And it used to be what a gold coin was, back in the 20s. And what could it buy? It could buy you a handmade Italian suit, that was customized to you and fitted. And I've been in the market looking at suits, and those are going to run you anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. And it just depends on how fancy you get. But the reality is we still haven't even caught up, in my opinion, to what the true value of these metals are.
Oh
Um,
no.
yeah.
No, because if they, and there's an interesting shift that's happening. Because to your point, number one, you said something that I want to bring up, and then
Yep.
I want to go to this other place.
Okay.
But you were talking about how if the stock market corrects while you're getting into retirement, then it changes your outlook. Well, not only does it change your outlook if you are retiring, but it also changes your outlook if you're just graduating from college and there are no jobs out there. And that has given rise to socialism in this country. Not that we have a democracy anymore, because we haven't had that in a while, but you're seeing the rise in socialism as a result of the great financial crisis in 2008. And I don't know if you remember the Occupy Wall Street movement that happened during
Oh,
that period of time in 2008. Nobody went to jail. Well, some protesters went to jail, but no bankers or anything went to jail because what they did was not illegal. Evil, unethical, disgusting, and many other adjectives that I could use, but not illegal. And it is not illegal. It was not, it's still not illegal, number one, because any of this experimentation that they're doing in the digital area, they have a safe harbor, which means they can blow up the system and they ain't going to jail. That's, bottom line, that's exactly what it means. Banks have a safe harbor. So personally, I think it's going to be very interesting to see this battle between Chase and Trump. This is going to be, and the debanking issue, this is going to be extremely interesting because, frankly, Chase has a safe harbor. They can do that to anybody. And guess what? Legally, they don't have to give you back what you perceive as your money. Because as soon as you make that deposit anywhere in the system, it ain't yours legally anymore. You are merely a beneficial owner at the bottom of a long list from the top, the legal registered owner, Seed and Company, which is owned by all the same big banks, right? And every subsidiary between this top legal owner and you down at the itty bitty bottom, they're all beneficial owners too. And that means that they can take your equity legally and borrow against it for their benefit. And you get none of the gains. But let me tell you, 2008, you got all the losses, didn't you? And they
yep.
did not fix this system yet. So, yeah, it changes the outlook. The problem, I didn't have a voice in 2008. I was working in this industry, but I didn't have the platform that I have today. if I had, because I was shouting at the computer, right? Um, if I had, I would have said the problem with that movement, it was a phenomenal movement. I hope to do this again with the sound money movement, quite
Yeah.
honestly. But they didn't know what they were really fighting for. They were just really miserable because all of their hopes and dreams had just been destroyed. But what they didn't realize was that the the I can't really call it a standard because it's only been around for since 71, but the debt-based system died in 2000 and well, really 2007, but it became apparent to everybody in 2008. And global central banks had started accumulating gold, so they changed the trajectory of their leases and purchases and sales, all of that in 2005. Isn't that interesting? And so today, what are we seeing? We're seeing the global central banks buy more gold than they ever have since they started tracking it back in the 50s. And so when you stop to think about what happened in 2008, it was the monetary system. And when you look at this new socialist movement, what are they going to do? They're going to cap rents. You know what garbage that really is? That means nothing. That just hurts the owners of whoever has that building. And we've been, supposed to think of real estate as this great hedge. And it is until you hit a hyperinflationary stage. Then all of the garbage that's been built up underneath it, all of this stuff, it's the only tool they have left, the only one. And I was listening to President Trump at Davos, and he was talking about that we are going to grow our way out of this problem, and we're going to lower rates, right? And what that really means is we need more inflation. We need more of this stuff. Do we need more of that stuff? Yeah, we do, because we are now in this doom loop that we cannot escape from. This is the end of this currency's life cycle. This big fiat money based on debt. And in order to start into a new system, which is a full surveillance system, as you well know, they have to get rid of the debt, because I questioned for a long time what is going to justify creating new money in this system. And all of my reading were about two things, either debt or purchases. And now, when President Trump, I think we talked about this before too, but when he signed the Genius Act legalizing stablecoins, my questions were answered, because it's going to be a combination of purchases along with debt. So, to me, as a student of currencies and currency life cycles since 1987, what we are experiencing is the death of the system. And what we all need to do is we need to have sound money that's above all of this geopolitics and all of this counterparty risk and all of this stuff. It's got to be above governments and central banks. That's the money. And we have to be self-sufficient so that we locally secure all the things that we need to lead a reasonable standard of living. And then, and this will be interesting to have this conversation with you, considering what you do. How about we come together in global community and demand redeemable gold back in the system again?
I think
How about we
I think
do
it'd be
that?
awesome. I think it'd be
Wouldn't
great.
it?
Oh yeah, I mean, one thing I've told you in the past, but not today. I do come from a banking family, and so my grandfather started a savings and loan in the '60s, and it got wiped out in 2008, along with all the savings and loans. And the interesting thing is, he didn't start it because he was a banker. He didn't start it to make a bunch of money. He started it because he was a real estate guy doing loans. He had a person that came into him all the time that wanted loans, and they were having a hard time getting them from the banks. So they decided to create a thrift and savings so that they could help the people by getting loans to the people that need them. And
Mm-hmm.
in time, you had the scandals in the 80s. They picked up multiple savings and loans and they grew. They were in California, a little bit in Arizona, and they continued to grow and do really well. And they had members of the Federal Reserve on their board of directors. And, they were telling them, get rid of negative amortization loans, get rid of
Mm-hmm.
subprime, and they wouldn't do it. And it was really the only way they could compete. And that's what took that whole industry down. And I remember the day where I was about to take my dad's position on the board of directors in 2007. So we knew things were happening, like you said. We knew in 2006 that things were not looking
Mm-hmm.
great. And in 2007, I was getting ready to take his board position. He's like, "No, you can't do this for other reasons." And I watched the family's stock go from $80 a share down to 2 cents, or maybe it was 5 cents. It was bad. And it was on a Friday. My dad said, if we don't have the X amount of dollars, it's going to be seized by the FDIC or FDIC insurance. And the assets were still there. It was still worth a lot of money. And basically, the wealth got taken from all the shareholders and given to other shareholders of a different bank overnight without any recourse of any kind. And that's where I started to learn about fractional reserve lending, how dangerous it is. If we were to look at that standard today, every bank would be out of business. They would all be
Oh,
collapsed.
100%. I just pulled the other day, last week, the most current FDIC diff report, right? And if you look at the underwater um, bonds that they have on their portfolio or debt, because it's not just bonds,
Yep.
it's any debt instrument. So it's a mortgage, it's a student loan, it's everything. It is so far underwater. What they have to do, to your point, is they have to prevent a run,
Yep.
you know. And it was Jamie Dimon that said, recently, in October, when you see a cockroach, there are lots more. That's not verbatim, but it was the essence of that. And that's absolutely right. And so, one place in their control, they are, pardon me, hell bent on destroying the rest. There's only officially 3 cents left. Let's take that out,
Yep.
right? They are just hell bent on that. So what do you need? You need sound money.
You do, because
That's the
what's
foundation.
happening is with the banks not being solvent. They used to have 10% reserves back in when we had the great financial collapse, right? Now it's zero. They continue to basically allow them to just not even have the reserves. They can go to the reverse repo window, get as much cash as they want out of it. They're hiding that
Right.
information from us. As a business person, I look at it. Almost every industry consolidates if it's allowed to, and monopolies are allowed to form, and then it becomes what's called an oligopoly, where you have just
Mhm.
five, maybe it's 9, 7, 5, 3. Those are kind of the patterns that you see. It's usually odd. I don't know why, but you see it with airlines. You see it with the automakers in the United States. I believe they want to do the
Right.
same thing with the banking system as well.
Mhm.
And so, a lot of people are trying to figure out, where's my money safe? Well, it so do I put it in a credit union? Do I put it into a regional bank? Do I put it into one of the national banks? I'm below the FDIC insurance limit, so I should be okay. And I think what people don't really realize is that, as you said earlier, the money in the bank isn't my money. I'm basically borrowing, I'm lending it to the bank, and they're paying me hardly any interest for it. Or maybe I've got a money market at 3 or 4% or a CD. But Lynette, what happens if that bank goes down? What happens if there is a run on the bank or it's insolvent?
Right. I mean, we have a great, and if you want this soundbite, we'll even send it to
That'd be
you.
awesome.
We have this great little soundbite from a meeting at the FDIC where they are laughing at the fact that the masses will be bailed in, but they don't want to let them know how shaky things are, because after all, then there would be unintended consequences. And the people that have their attorneys, the big corporations and stuff, well, they're all privy to this. To me, that is absolutely disgusting. And they have barely more than 1 penny for every insured deposit. 1 penny.
That's horrible.
And during 2000, in the aftermath of 2008 in those banks, you can go on the diff report. You can see where they were in the negative. And they actually made a statement, which I have not been able to find, and I just didn't have the skill set then that I do now. But they actually said if one more small bank had failed, it would have become obvious to everybody that the FDIC had no money, that the emperor has no clothes. And so it was skin o' teeth. And how did they resolve it? They didn't change behavior. They actually doubled down on the bad behavior that broke the system to begin with. And the level of leverage, to your point, no reserve requirement. We are in a no reserve requirement arena with massive amounts of deregulation and massive, massive amounts of experimentation. I don't know. I think that's a little dangerous.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Right?
It reminds me, I'll have to see if I can find the picture, but it has like on fire. But it is true. And I think this is, I think this is something people don't realize. First off, I'm not advocating for a bank run. I'm not saying go take all your cash out of the bank. I run businesses. I work for a company. And, I've got to pay my bills. Most of them are digitally. People just don't take as many checks. So I've always got to have a month's worth of operating capital minimum. And I usually have some savings in there. I have a home, and the home takes up, because I live in California, it's a large percentage of my net worth. It's denominated in dollars. And so if we have a dollar crisis, which I do think is coming, yeah, to your point, if all the banks were to fail, let's just say, okay, there's some of them that are too big to fail. So eventually they will get some bailout to some degree, in my opinion.
First bail in, then bail out.
Then bail out. It won't be legal, but they'll do it anyway. They did it with SVB Bank a few years ago. All the friends were in there for the Fed. So, we saw some really weird nepotism stuff going on there. But when it does happen, because I do think it's going to happen, we're talking like $11 trillion in deposits or so. And so there's a couple things that can happen there, in my opinion. One is people don't get their money back. And that's political suicide for whoever's in power. The other thing they do is they print $11 trillion and they create FDIC insurance. And what does that do? That creates a massive amount of inflation to the point where the money you're getting back is not the money you put in. It's a fraction of it. It's 1/10 of what you put in there, basically. So it's hardly anything. So what I'd love to talk about with you too, Lynette, is let's talk a little bit about some of the ways that you can protect it. A lot of people that are out there that watch this channel are stackers. So, they have been in buying gold and silver since silver was $5. A lot of people, some of them were buying gold when gold was sitting at $200, $250, maybe even earlier. A lot of them are heavy into bullion. A lot of them are heavier into silver than they are into gold. When I look at my ratio, I've got about 57 ounces of silver to each ounce of gold I have. And if I look at dollar figures, I was 60% in gold, denominated in dollar, and 40% in silver. And that's now swapped with how much silver's moved up faster than gold, to where I'm at about 55% in dollars in silver and 45% in gold. And a lot of people are trying to figure out, are we at a point where we can still do the gold to silver ratio from gold to silver to buy more silver? Is that too late? Is it now the time to start selling silver or trading it into gold? But I'd love to get your take on kind of ratios, the patterns that we're going into. And then I'd love to explore some of the products that, that you recommend people holding and why.
Okay.
That's a lot.
Well, let's start. Well, but it's all doable. So we're good. And we'll start with the ratio, because obviously I just did a piece on it. And I know that people talk about that all the time. So I always want to address it and help people make educated choices.
Okay.
But when you're talking about swapping gold for silver, silver for gold, and swapping back and forth, what you're actually doing is talking about a trade. And for me, sound money is my foundation. So I don't want it to wobble back and forth trading it. But, in your process, what was the first thing that we started talking about? What you're trying to accomplish, right?
Yep. My goals.
Exactly. So it's really about the right tool for the job, because when you're looking at silver and gold in any form at all, there is a finite amount of it. And, we were saying earlier, there's gold and then there's gold, there's silver and then there's silver. So your goals, no matter any investment that you're doing, your goals must come first and drive whatever it is that you do. So personally, and also having done so many studies on what happens with gold and silver during hyperinflationary currency resets like we are in, you do see that we'll come to a period where, okay, that ratio gold silver price action will grow wider and then it'll grow lower, which is where I think we are right now. And then as the hyperinflation kicks into gear, it goes huge again. And when I pulled the chart, which anybody can do, it's free, longtermtrends.com, you can pull the gold silver ratio pretty easily and you can see where they got the 15-1. And you can also see when that pattern shifted in 1913 or 14, where it went to a 20th of an ounce of gold. This is a $1 gold coin to 1 ounce of silver, that 20-1 ratio. Okay. So, and you have different things for different functions, but you can see it go down, then you see it go up. It actually broke above the highest, according to the long-term trends, was 121-1.
Okay.
Now, when I checked it yesterday, it was at like 54 and change to 1. There is a support level on the bottom at 50. So what I'm looking for is it going to bounce off of that? Is it going to break through that? If it breaks through that then becomes the new resistance level on the top. And the next level of support that I see is at like 40-1. If it breaks through that, if I recall this accurately, I don't think I see any more resistance until we get down into those lower levels, maybe 20-1 or what have you. However, on the flip side of that, if it fails to break through that bottom support level, we have broken above the all-time high to go to that 121. So what I think is going to happen, which would be historically accurate,
Okay.
is we could test it. We could even go lower. But especially with inflation rearing its ugly head, again, in a very vocal way, means high noticeable price increases because of the inflation that they call growth. Okay. It's really inflation,
Growth.
most of it. Um, uh, you know, I don't buy it for the ratio. And if you are heavyweight, if you go in and you say, okay, and you had this experience, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but I built this, so I'm pretty confident in it, is, we did an assessment of what your day-to-day living looks like. And we have it
Yes.
broken out. Okay, so what do you want? You want silver for that function, or do you want gold, barterable gold for that function? In this case, we're talking about barterability, right? And if it's property taxes, you want gold.
Mhm.
If it's buying a tank of gas, you want silver. So again, if you are sitting on a tremendous amount of silver, we also take a look at, you already paid the fees to buy that silver. Does it make sense to swap that out? It might not. It kind of depends. But you can pay your property taxes with silver. It's just going to take a lot more and a lot more space. But if you already have it, we're not about churning your account. This is about making sure that whatever it is that you do actually supports exactly what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And so I believe strongly that I don't really care what the ratio is because I'm not going to trade my silver. I have enough silver for myself and both of my children for 10 years. I think that's enough, right? But if I were to actually weigh the number of ounces of silver to the number of ounces of gold, even in collectible form, I have way more gold. And the reason why I have way more gold is because of my personal goals, which is to take advantage of what's happening. I can't change it, right? I can't stop the rest of the erosion of the dollar. We need a big crisis. It needs to end. I'm trying to have a global impact on sound money by getting redeemable gold back in the system again. It's why I travel as much as I do talking about this, because there's 1% that's ruling us. If we can get 3% of the global population to really quiet revolution, just buy gold and silver. Now we can have a voice in this next system. And if it's redeemable, and what that means, just like this, right? When we had these gold certificates, if I did not like what I saw my government doing, I could walk into the bank with this and pull the gold out of the financial system. This is why gold forces fiscal responsibility. Debt, you don't have that same. They can create as much debt as they want. And there really are no limitations to how much debt they can and frankly have created, right? So if we're talking about strategy, first, you want to secure your standard of living. So that community piece where you've got surety and food and water and all of those things, critically important. Get it done. Just get it done. Go to a farmer's market, go to a community garden center, get to know the people that grow your food, give them a day, learn some skills, right? You're going to be in a much better position. But also the foundation must be in sound money. You got to have that sound money foundation, or if they tell you to jump, you're going to have to say how high. And that's not really something that's easy for me
Well,
to
and
do.
just,
I'm the 7. I'm scrappy.
just to your point on that, I don't ever want to be in that position where I have to do what they say so I can eat. That's how
Exactly.
they get you. That's how they get you to commit to things or to agree to things you don't want to do. And
Yep.
I'm a religious guy. I'm a Christian. I believe in the Bible. I read things in the Bible. If you don't want to commit to things that are in Revelations, one of the best ways to do that is to be able to be self-sufficient and outside of the system and not have something that pushes you into it.
Exactly. And to your point, gold and silver are God's money.
Yep.
Right?
Money.
They have never, in thousands of years that they've attempted to recreate gold and silver in the lab, that has not been done yet.
No, not even CERN can do it in the accelerator particle accelerators. They had fractions of molecules for seconds, and not even a fraction of a second it disappeared. It's created the way it is in the heart of a star. You're not going to create it any other way, and if you try to, you'll probably blow the planet up. So don't do it. and
Right.
And it is money. But to your point, in all full disclosure, I have worked with Lynette Zang's company. I have purchased from them in the past. And one of the things that I love, and this is why I've asked her to come on too, is it's just like anything that you're planning around and you're setting goals around. I've got a home. I have property taxes. They're pretty darn high. I want to make sure that I don't lose my home. I want to make sure I can cover my property taxes. Now, I didn't go and leverage the heck out of things to buy gold and silver, but I did want to support those assets that I have and be able to secure them. And so, being able to pay things off, being able to make
Pay off that
payments of
straight debt like that.
all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, my goal is to be able to secure my family's future. My next goal is to be able to come out better off financially than I am today. And then my third goal is to be able to have enough to help other people. And that's why I've started the channel. It's education. I mean, this is, I work about 70 hours a week between my day job and this channel. And I'm okay doing it. It's a lot of work, but I have a mission. I feel like it's it's something that I'm being supported in to do to help people that are out there. And a
Mhm.
lot of people
Mhm.
feel like they're just buying. They don't know what they're buying for. They don't have that strategy. They don't have that plan in
Right.
mind. And I think that's where it's good. It's a good start, but you got to put that strategy in place. And so I see a lot of people in that are like 300 or more ounces of silver to an ounce of gold. And so they're hoping we'll get down to a 20 ratio and they can flip everything really quickly. But I don't think they realize that at that point, it may be harder to go into gold. And you
Exactly.
can't ever really flip it a ratio because everybody needs to support their family and make a little bit of money and have
Right.
a
There's
business.
fees
There's
involved.
margins, there's fees, there's things like that are involved. But what advice would you have for someone that's really heavy in silver today that doesn't have very much gold?
Well, I could pull up the silver chart and tell you. I mean, I could tell you absolutely. Both spot. This is the other thing. When you're referring to Wall Street's gold and silver,
Yeah.
it's really a spot contract.
Okay.
And this is like huge. If you are I suggest you call us and let us calculate out how much silver do you need, how much gold do you need, and then you make the switch. There's no, as long as you're comfortable with it, because you got to do whatever it is that you're comfortable with. And we talked about the raw versus the slabbed.
Yep.
So I think that would be a great place to go inside of this, because I too run a company and I need to make sure that no matter what happens, I can cover my salaries, things like that. Um, for me, that's ounces of gold. Now, this is a pre 33. The date is 1879 on this 1 ounce coin. Well, not quite, but pretty close. And this is a new piece of bullion. So, these run the same way that the bullion runs, because they're going to be influenced by the spot market at this point in time. But that's the piece that's shifting. And what's particularly exciting for me in here is that the shift that started to the spot markets dictating the price action, or price discovery, I should say. We're now converting to the physical supply demand dynamics that are starting to take over. And that's why I brought up how many different entities use gold and
Mhm.
how many different entities use silver, which I have to count, which is not a big deal, but there's more that use this than use this. However, 33 entities or more, because maybe I don't think my list is necessarily conclusive, use gold. What do you want when you're going into a knife fight or going into any fight?
You want
Do you
gold in
want
a knife fight. I'm just kidding.
exactly
A
you
gold
do. You
knife.
want gold and silver in your possession. So again, going back to functionality, I just kind of, this is my savings account,
Yep.
right? Now, I have the smaller pieces as well for property taxes. Fortunately, I do not have any chronic illnesses, but if I did, then we would cover that kind of thing to make sure that you can get the coverage that you need there. But yeah, you before you make any changes, we're all about educated choices. You can do it randomly, and that's what most companies do, because they have not studied currency life
Mhm.
cycles. They don't understand really how the collectible market works. But frankly, this is what I was groomed from. I know you said you're on a mission. I'm on a mission,
Yep.
you know, uh, because we've got to do something. We've got to help the world, right? What I see and what I see on Wall Street is it's all about me. And as long as I can benefit, I will then bend over and do whatever I need to do, because it's all about me. But this is part of the plan. I mean, I hate to say this, but it's true, because I've read their documentation. It's divide and conquer, right? We aren't talking to each other anymore. In fact, if you disagree with me on anything, I hate your guts and I want to kill you. No, 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 no. Every voice must be heard in order to be able to make a fully educated choice. And people then also need to learn to acknowledge and recognize and move with their gut, because we're being told what the right thing is. So you listen to all these voices. You don't listen for what you want to hear them say. You listen for what is the truth of this. And you can guide yourself. Just trust your gut, but build that community because there is strength in numbers. So the barterable part of the portfolio even takes into account this cash, right? Because to your earlier point as well, this is the current tool of barter.
Yep.
So you have to have a certain level of that. But if you're properly diversified, you diversify it with enough of this so that when this loses all of its purchasing power, it doesn't hurt you. And that's the other thing about the strategy. But it looks first at sustaining your current standard of living. And you would do that with a combination of cash in the wild before it has the chips to recognize negative rates in it. So some level of cash in the wild, depending upon what your living standard is. And then probably some digital gold like Kinesis or Glint, where you have a card that you can use. So that's your short-term kind of liquidity, just boom, 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 maybe even some gold backs. This is a $1 gold back, and it has a thousandth of an ounce of gold embedded in this. And remember, gold is indestructible. So in whatever form, they can pull it out.
We've burned them. Those things are indestructible, and the gold's there. So we've tested it. We've
There
burned
you
them.
go.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go. And so with a level of fractional, so less than an ounce pieces. And then this is the other thing that I want everybody to understand really clearly. And I know you talk about this, but gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base.
Yep.
So a lot of times people say, well, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. You know, I mean, look, it's not as easy to do anymore, but this is a whole bunch of sterling silver that I bought at yard sales, at estate sales, some secondhand shops, you know, so anything that's marked sterling or 925 is 92.5% pure. So there are all different ways that you can accumulate, even if you have a very, very small budget.
Yep.
Though, going back to the community piece, keeping in mind that skill sets are barterable, right?
Unless it's all digital, then you might need to learn a new skill set.
Well, that's true, but I don't think they can an algorithm can lay a pipe for irrigation to grow food.
It can't. And so
right?
The point I make is a lot of what I do is digital stuff, right? It's in mathematical algorithms, it's in analytics. And so, one of my other skills is learning how to be a banker, learning how to help people with gold and silver education, and to go into it. And, the things that I love, Lynette, when I met with your company, there's a couple things. It was about my goals. It wasn't about your guys' goals. It was about what am I trying to accomplish? And you laid out some options, and I can decide what I want to do. I wasn't forced into any particular product. I wasn't forced to make a purchase. It was, here's what you can do. And I've bought from many online bullion dealers. I've bought from local coin shops. I go to the Long Beach Coin Show. We usually have a booth. We're going to have one again here next month. And we buy and we sell to people. And so to me, it's about community. It's one of the reasons we do the booth. I take 3 days off. I don't make very much money from it relative to an hourly wage for what I normally make, but it's about the community. We're there meeting people, getting to know them. I'll even do one-on-one coaching with a lot of people here in Southern California. It's about building a community. We've got, I don't know, roughly 20 million people in the area. How do I help build a community among 20 million people? It's a whole different ball game for us. But I've been able to put a strategy in place that I can sleep well at night because I know my house is going to be there. I'm going to be able to have, and I have a lot of food storage and water storage, so I know I have that in place. I've got enough silver for barterability for my family, for each family member. We've got 5 for 10 years as well. We're probably even heavier in that too, but that has another purpose as well. And so I love being able to put a plan in place, know what my metals are for, and why. I went and bought a sterling set for myself because I think it's healthier to use than stainless steel that has nickel in it, and it's harder to find it where it doesn't have nickel.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit granny looking. This is what my wife said, so we're not using it for our everyday wear yet. But I think I'll work her down one of these days. But I wanted to grab it before it's too expensive to buy and to
Absolutely.
have. So I look at all of these things that are out there. There's so many options. I think the key for everybody that's watching this is I recommend getting a plan put in place. Whether it's me helping, Lynette Zang helping you guys, one of the people in her company, whether it's watching YouTube videos and starting to formulate your own plan. There needs to
Mm-hmm.
be a reason why you're doing this, not just trying to flip in and out of gold and silver ratios, because you're never
Right.
going to time it right. It's always going to be a little bit ahead of you or a little bit behind you, and that's okay. But I think the key, Lynette, is to have cash on hand, have gold on hand, silver on hand, and start to understand the difference between bullion, collectible gold, for example, and silver, and then also when you get into more of the rare coins. What do they do
Mm-hmm.
for you? How do they make a difference? Because there's a lot of noise out there around that. And so, last question I have for you on this is, I talk to a lot of people about a potential confiscation, and it freaks everybody out. Like I get some interesting comments. Let me put it that way. Um, they've done it before. I don't know why they wouldn't do it again. We haven't even audited Fort Knox, or any of the other depositories, so we don't actually know how much gold we have. China may have a lot more than us. They hold a lot of our debt, so there's things they could do that could cause us a lot of issues, like dumping our debt, backing their currencies with gold. Things along those lines that could definitely hurt us. Because we don't know all these situations here, I can't rule out that there would never be a confiscation again. If someone's concerned, if you're not concerned about a confiscation, carry on. If someone is concerned about a confiscation, what are your thoughts there on how people can best prepare for it? And I don't know if you have any kind of a percentage or probability you think of it actually happening again.
Well, I love the question on confiscation because I was born in 1954. And at that time, it was illegal to hold more than 5 ounces of gold, right? Any other way other than pre 1933 or jewelry for that matter, right? Because that's in a different category. It's classified as a collectible. And I used to get a lot of pushback, and there are even some people that used to interview me, and then decided that they just didn't like the collectibles at all, and so they don't interview me anymore. Except now they're talking about the collectibles.
Yeah.
So number one, I find that to be extraordinarily interesting. But my uncle Al was so instrumental in me understanding how hard assets, how tangible assets move inside of a trend cycle, and that they go from undervaluation to fair valuation to overvaluation to fair valuation to undervaluation. And it's this constantly moving like this. So, when you're talking about confiscation, one day I was 10 when this happened. So 1964. And my parents and I were at his house, and he was my favorite, and I was his favorite. We were very close. And he took us in a back bedroom and he said, I want to show you something. And he had 2 tall floor safes, and he opened the doors of those floor safes. And he said to us, if anything should happen to me, Aunt Bertie will be well taken care of for the rest of her life because of what's in these safes. So, of course, I looked. And I can tell you absolutely for a fact, you couldn't fit one more 1-ounce gold coin in there, because he's a major antique dealer. So he was going to all of these high net worth homes and buying stuff from them. And they'd go, oh, well, we have these coins and we don't know what we can do with them. So he's like, I'll buy them. And he probably bought them for, I don't know. I mean, at that time, spot was at like $38 a coin. So he probably paid somewhere in that vicinity. But while I didn't understand it when I was 10 years old and the significance of what he was showing me, I have come to understand why I was in that room at that moment in time, right? Because there are no accidents. And he was able to hold, at least, knowing what I know now, at least 3,000 ounces of gold legally that he could use in the normal marketplace. And this is critical that you get this, because he was holding 3,000 ounces of gold the legal way, right? So, yeah, did that influence me? Heck yes. And by the way, there have been 5, count them, 5 more overt confiscations in the US. The last one being 1971, which it's never spun. I only recently realized this. It's never spun as if that was a gold confiscation, but it 100% was a gold confiscation, because up to that moment, countries could turn in dollars in exchange for their gold. And there was a run on the dollar in the 60s as countries did exactly that. So that by 1971, when Nixon closed the gold window, but what he did when he did that last confiscation, overt confiscation,
Yep.
because there are many forms of confiscation.
Yep.
With that last overt form of confiscation, we had less gold in deep storage than we did prior to the confiscation in 33. So, and why? Because we were abusing the currency and printing so that we could fund the wars, right? At that time, it was the Vietnam War. But what a lot of people don't know is that starting in 2013, our 2 largest buyers of our bonds, of our debt, Japan and China, quietly started to unwind their balance sheet. So it isn't just that they have a lot of our treasures that they could dump on the market. They certainly do, and that would certainly have an impact.
Yep.
However, if you look on the chart of Japan's and China's gold holdings, or not gold, I'm sorry, their bond holdings, the US Treasury bond holdings, the run on the dollar looks exactly like it did in the 60s. We just don't know it yet. When do you want to know this? Because it should be pretty apparent to everybody at this point that the alliances are shifting. And they're shifting pretty rapidly. And I don't think there's any coming back from the way that they're shifting into this new system.
No, and one thing that worries me is all the talk about crypto. Has the West waited too long to acquire gold and silver, to the point where they're potentially considering going into crypto to be what backs the currency? And if they do, that right there is asking for EMPs. It's asking for electrical grid problems. It's asking for hacking. It's asking for quantum computing. You know, we were talking about quantum computing before we started too. It's real. They exist. They're getting fast. And it's countries that own these things. It's not individuals. They're expensive. And destabilizing things, all kinds of stuff. Passwords will not work. Even biometric stuff isn't going to work. You're going to have to get into some other technology that uses quantum computing just to keep your stuff secure. And there's not enough of those. So if someone wants to hack you, it's from a country. And what do they go after? They go after the banks and the money system. Last thing I'll say too is, if you guys want world peace, own gold and silver. The more sound money we have and the less fiat debt that's out there, they can't just create weapons of war like crazy.
Right.
If you look at the times where we've had sound money, we've had fewer wars. We've had fewer conflicts. So I'm looking forward to the day we return to that. But like you said, Lynette, I think it's going to be something that happens, that cracks and breaks, and we're going to have to deal with it and get through it. And that's why I got a channel. I want to help people get prepared for that. What I'll try to do is get an affiliate link with you too, and put that down below so people can go to your site and check it out. You guys, this isn't pumping something. It's not trying to get you to go do something. It's really trying to help you have an alternative. So Lynette, how does it work with you guys? If someone's curious, they want to understand what your strategy is, and your methodology of planning and setting goals, how does that process work for them?
Well, the same way that it worked for you.
Okay.
You just call us and you have that conversation. And our personal goal is to meet you where you are and help you get to where you want to go. And it isn't just like, here, buy gold and silver and good luck to you. This is a long-term relationship. We're doing a lot of work right now to future-proof this company, because it's not that you're just going to need us for this moment. You're always going to need to make educated choices that, I don't know, what a concept, puts your best interest first. But we need to do that in a community.
Yes.
Because if we do not come together and say, no, what you have in mind for us, no, we want redeemable gold back in the system again. And it can be a crypto system, right? It's just, all right, make it 40%. I'm good with that. You can keep the rest of the garbage. Just give me the gold. And then that will create those restrictions. This is the best opportunity I've ever seen to make that happen. But I could tell you, if we don't do this, then we're going to be just constantly caught up in these crashes, and, and the winners and the losers are chosen, and we are less and less and less democratic. We'll have that social scoring system. They'll know what do governments talk about? They talk about lifetime taxes.
Oh, yeah.
Once everything is in the system, they can just pull it out. And who are you going to complain
they
to?
can tax it first, and then you have to fight at the end of the year to say it wasn't a tax.
They can do any darn thing they want. We need to take our power back. And the only way that I can really see that is to create a global sound money movement and to demand it, because they're not going to volunteer it. They're not going to volunteer it.
No.
There are more of us than there are of them. You don't like inflation? Take your power back. You don't like the corruption? Take your power back. You don't like what they're doing to you? You want a level playing field? What is this K-shaped economy? Yeah, there are always going to be people that are ambitious that will rise to the top, as they should, right? You're putting forth the effort. But I like everybody. That was the American dream. I was raised in the 50s where that was a probability. And people did it. I'm second generation. No, yeah, I am. I'm second generation. My grandparents came to the US with zero, nothing. Right? That was the dream. And it's interesting because, I travel around the world and I meet people, and people that are just the normal people out there still have that dream. But look at the college graduates and look at the people today, the young that are coming up. That American dream is dead.
It's really
right?
bad.
Unaffordable.
I've got 3 kids that are in their early 20s. I don't know how they're ever going to buy a house.
How do they feel? Pardon?
I don't know how they're ever going to afford to buy a house.
Well, you're going to put them in a position, but it isn't just about you and your family, right? Because really what happens, and it's not rocket science. And that's another challenge that I have with this. People don't understand this money system.
Yep.
Right? Because nobody understands inflation. How are you going to understand? I'm not an engineer. You're a lot smarter than me in that regard, but I can't read an algorithm and understand how this money is programmed, or when that programming might shift, or what are the back doors and what are the dangers in it. That is way above my pay grade. I don't understand it. So what does that mean? That means that I could easily be taken advantage of.
Yeah, and the truth is, we're not going to have a CBDC by name. They've already passed legislation for that.
That's a smart we've got the.
All that means is the Fed creates it. Now we're just going to have a third-party corporation create it. It'll do the same thing.
Thank you.
It's programmable, and you're going to start to hear things like the people that are hoarding gold and silver are crashing the economy. They're causing everything to go. There's going to be BS like that comes out on the news. That'll tell you that we're getting closer to a confiscation, by the way.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, and you asked me, when is that likely to happen? I'm working on a series, The 5 Doom Loops of a Financial Crisis.
Okay. Sounds bad.
And pardon?
Sounds bad. 5 of them. Oh no. Doom loops.
Yeah, and it kind of works like dominoes as they go down, except that it's also in a circle.
Okay.
So it is a doom loop. It's the collateral doom loop, which we are testing right this second as you and I are sitting here talking. The collateral doom loop is the first one. And it is, it's kind of geared up in the collateral doom loop, but then it spills over into the intermediary doom loop. And that's when I think you see, although I'm not done with the series, so I'm kind of going, I might change my mind on this as I'm working on it. But it's typically amongst that second one that you'll see it, because do they want you to protect yourself from the inflation? No. And by the way, inflation is a very big part of confiscation. It's just a
Oh, yeah.
different name
Oh, yeah.
for it. And my favorite chart is the Federal Reserve purchasing power chart. Do yourself a favor, everybody that's watching, go into the Federal Reserve Education Department, FRED, and put in, and you can just search this, purchasing power of the consumer dollar. Put your birthday in there. See how much purchasing power this junk has lost since the day you were born. And if you don't think that's a form of confiscation, there's this bridge in Brooklyn I'd love to sell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, taxation is a form of confiscation. And what is it that you really have to barter with? It's your time, right? That's what you have. And that's what they have been confiscating. And they knew it. They knew it when they set the system up, because they actually said, if people have to work more to sustain their standard of living, they will have less time to pay attention to what we are doing.
It's all
I
been
talk to
socially
my
engineered.
daughters. Totally. It's all engineered, and it's not necessary.
But it's more of an American thing today than it is, I'd say, a Western thing. I work with a lot of people from India, being in high tech. And every time I have a conversation with them about gold and silver, they already know all this stuff. They grew up with it. It's in their culture. The Indians that I know that are here in the United States, they don't save in the bank. They save by the gram. And so anytime they have extra money, they buy silver. They buy gold. They buy silver for more festivals and for religious rites. It's a more purity metal. But for gold, that's what they buy. And the last thing I'll say that's really interesting is when they get married, they wear a lot of gold. And that is the dowry that gets passed from the father of the bride to the husband. They still have a lot of arranged marriages, but that jewelry is not to be passed down. It's to be melted and then created into a new form of jewelry for the next daughter that comes along. And so I was talking to him about collectibles, and that's not a thing that they have in their market. It's very much just based on, jewelry grade and maybe a few coins here and there, or bars. They really don't get into coins, which is interesting. But
they wear their wealth.
They wear their wealth.
And
it's in their jewelry.
Right.
It's in their necklaces, their earrings, their bracelets.
22 carats, gorgeous stuff.
Gorgeous stuff. And so, you got to look at these cultures that have been around for a long time. I mean, how many thousands of years has India been around? I wonder what kept their culture going. It was probably sound money. It was probably a few other things too, but they didn't get into those situations like a lot of Europe did, where we got into the fiat, or the Roman Empire, where it got into fiat as well. They started clipping coins, and they started taking the precious metals out of them and making alloys. So you got to look at all that stuff. But Lynette, I want to thank you for coming on. This was awesome. We'd love to have you back on again soon. And
100%.
To me, it's about educating people and helping them understand the options that are out there, guys. It's not about freaking out. If you're doing it in fear, you gotta go eat some chocolate or ice cream and chill out for a bit and come back. But you got to do it with the right thing in mind, which is your goals and accomplishing those. So look for the link down below. And if you guys haven't done so, hit the subscribe bell icon so you don't miss the next interview we have with Lynette. And hopefully one of these days, I'm hoping to come out and meet you in person, as well as maybe check out some of the, prepping stuff that you guys do, just to be able to give people a few other ideas along those lines.
Absolutely. You'll come to the farm, which is, I live in the middle of Phoenix on an urban farm, planted out the exterior of the property too. So I share with my neighbors. It's one way that I'm building community here. And then, if we can arrange it, then I can take you to the off-grid property as well, the bug out property.
Well, thank you for coming, everybody, and peace out.